want to thank you all for coming. My name is David Teddy. I'm an attorney here in Shelby. I'm from Shelby. I was born here in 1963. I've been practicing law in this community for 36 years. And for almost 25 of those years, there's been a little girl in this community that's been missing, and her name is Asha Degree. And what has happened to Asha has been the concern of this community. In February of next year, just 5 months from now, it will have been 25 years since she's been gone, and people are asking for information. And I'm here on behalf of a gentleman by the name of Roy Dedman, who hired me to assist him with some events that have occurred at his home at 621 Cherryville Road. Now, Roy came to see me after he had already spoken with law enforcement and while the search at his home was ongoing. And I have been informed by Roy that he was questioned about the Asha Degree disappearance. And he told law enforcement that he had no information about what happened to Asha. He wasn't withholding any information about what happened to Asha. And I am aware that just about every family member of Roy Dedman has been interviewed. And those individuals, his wife and his 3 daughters, have also said that they don't know what happened to Asha Degree and don't have any information about what happened to Asha Degree. It is my practice for the last 36 years to not do this, to not make public statements about cases that are pending. Now, we don't have an actual case in the courtroom that's pending at this juncture. It's merely an investigation. But I feel compelled, because of the rampant conjecture and speculation that has been happening in our community about the search that took a couple of days to complete on Cherryville Road. The people that have made statements that they claim to be factual are in fact false. And I want to thank Sheriff Norman for his press release today, because in his press release he cleared up some of the misinformation that is out there, that a body had been found at 621 Cherryville Road. There's been no body found at 621 Cherryville Road, let alone 7 bodies. Some people are putting out there on social media that a number of bodies have been removed from Cherryville Road. That's just not true. There is a statement out there on social media that Roy Dedman has confessed to having information or somehow being involved in the disappearance of Asha Degree. That is false. To my knowledge, no person has made any type of a confession that they had any information about what happened to Asha Degree. And so Roy Dedman and his family are just like the rest of us. They don't know what happened to Asha. And like Sheriff Norman said, it's time for the conjecture and the speculation about what happened to her to stop until there are facts, supported facts that we can rely upon to draw conclusions. I'm disturbed as a lawyer and as a citizen of this community about the information that has been spread out there. And I'm concerned not only for my client, Roy Dedman, and for his family, but most importantly, I'm concerned for the Degree family. I do not know Asha's parents personally, but I do know a number of their relatives, and they are good and decent and honorable people. And they deserve better than what some people in this community have done recently by spreading false information that Asha's remains have been found. I don't think that the press will be notified about what happened to Asha Degree until Asha's parents are told first. So the purpose of my communication to you and to the community is to ask people to honor Asha and her family and the Dedman family by not making statements about a search or the results of a search that are not known to you. And if you spread something as if it is fact, then you are participating in a disservice to Asha Degree and her family, and a disservice to Roy Dedman and his family. And as Sheriff Norman said in his press release today, it needs to stop. Now, I'm not going to have a whole lot more to say about this investigation. Next week, I believe the search warrant that was executed at 621 Cherryville Road will be made public. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I think it's likely to happen. And when you read the affidavit, it may be more clear to you why there was a search at 621 Cherryville Road and some other locations. I think there will also be information in that search warrant that sadly will link a person to the circumstances of Asha's disappearance that is no longer living. And it's very possible, not saying that the person that was named in the search warrant had anything to do with her disappearance, because I don't know any more than you do, or any more than the Sheriff's Department or the FBI or the SBI does. But it's very possible that that person, who's no longer here, has the answer as to what happened to Asha. And the answer may very well never be known. But the connection to Roy Dedman and his family is tenuous at best. And Roy has maintained, and his family has maintained, and will continue to maintain, that they're not involved with Asha's disappearance and have no information that would help law enforcement figure out what happened to her. This morning, I gave Sheriff Norman information concerning Roy Dedman that is consistent with Roy's denial of having knowledge about what happened to Asha Degree. I'm not going to go into what that information is. I will let Sheriff Norman, if he chooses to, release that information to you. My guess is he will not, because it's not appropriate for information about an ongoing investigation to be spread. Now, there's going to be some information in a search warrant, and I would just ask, if the press gets a hold of the search warrant and the community reads the search warrant, I would ask you not to engage in conjecture and speculation, and not make statements that somehow this crime, if there was a crime, has been solved, because it has not been. There is a tremendous amount of investigation still ongoing, and I think the best course for me to do going forward, and for Roy Dedman and his family to do going forward, is to let law enforcement do their job. And I would ask the community to allow law enforcement to do their job. And participating in the rampant spread of rumor and innuendo is not helpful. Those are my comments, and I appreciate you all coming.
Mr. Teddy, could you tell us what, if anything, the authorities have given in terms of a reason why they searched this property?
I think if the search warrant is released, I think the affidavit that is attached to the search warrant will give you that reason. I'm not going to get out ahead of law enforcement and tell you that. We've been given a copy of the search warrant. It was left at my client's house. And so I'll just leave it at that. And when the search warrant gets released, this is the last comment I'm going to have about this case. I'm not going to convene another press conference. I feel like Roy has been, because there was all this activity at his house and because all these false statements were made, I feel like he's sort of been convicted in the court of public opinion. And I feel like the man who's 80 years old deserves somebody standing up and saying, I've told law enforcement I didn't do it. I've told law enforcement I don't have any information about it. And when this search warrant gets released, there's going to be a whole bunch of more conjecture and speculation, and we're not going to come reconvene and talk about it. We're going to leave it in the hands of law enforcement to try to figure this out, and it's our hope they figure it out.
Can you characterize this person person that you mentioned who has this tenuous relationship, is he a family member? Is he a friend, associate, employee? What is he to the Dedmans?
When the affidavit is released, it will be clear to you what the connection is.
Was he on that property at some point?
I don't have any information about that. Not to my knowledge, I'll say that, not to my knowledge. But the connection will be clear when you get the affidavit next week.
Has anybody in law enforcement investigators told you or Mr. Dedman that he or any of his family members are suspects in this?
I'm not going to get into what law enforcement has told Mr. Dedman or his family members. I will tell you that Mr. Dedman was questioned as to whether he had any information about the disappearance of Asha Degree, and he emphatically said that he did not. And this morning, we gave information to Sheriff Norman that we contend supports his statement to law enforcement.
How's Mr. Dedman doing, given all of this?
He's clearly upset, as anybody would be, to have your house turned upside down and to have people in the community making all sorts of false statements about you. I mean, that's why we're holding this press conference today, is we join in Sheriff Norman's request that the community stop making false statements.
This is a small, tight community. How long has he lived here?
I believe he's been here his whole life.
So obviously, you know, I mean, small towns like this, you might know everybody or a good majority of everybody. When you have these statements being lobbed at him, is there a reason why that you think this is happening if people know him or know of him for a long time?
I can't speak to why someone would make some of the statements that have been made. I doubt anybody that knows Roy is part of that statement, those kinds of statements. I doubt anybody that knows him would be making those statements.
Can you speak as to when he was actually interviewed by law enforcement? Was that Tuesday before the searches happened?
It was the day of the search.
The day of the search, Tuesday or Wednesday?
He was asked to come down to the sheriff's office. He came down to the sheriff's office. While he was at the sheriff's office, unbeknownst to him, his house was being searched.
How long did they talk to him?
I don't know.
What other properties were searched?
There was another, I think there was a house that he and his wife owned that was searched. I want to say that house is in Patterson Springs. I'm not absolutely 100% sure of that, but I think it was in Patterson Springs.
And is there another location that you are aware of, or just two locations that were searched?
As far as I know, there were only two locations where a search warrant was executed in Cleveland County.
What about a nursing home in Lincoln County?
There may have, I don't know if there was a search warrant issued for a nursing home in Lincoln County.
Given what you know, David, do you expect an arrest to be made in this case?
I have no idea. I'm sure that the sheriff's department is in possession of information that I nor anybody in the community is aware of. So I have no way to say whether or not arrest is imminent in this case.
That green car that was towed away, can you say who it belongs to, who owns it?
I'm not going to get into specifics about information or items of evidence that were taken from the property.
Does it belong to this person with this tenuous connection?
I'm not going to get into that. The sheriff's office may decide to share that information with you at some point. I'm just simply here to ask the community to slow down and take a deep breath.
Did Mr. Dedman own that car?
So I'm not going to get into information about the ownership of the car.
When you said two locations, does both of the addresses on Cherryville Road count as one location? Like it's multiple properties within the same location?
I'm not sure about that. Honestly, I don't know if a second search warrant was issued for the separate property. But I think there was a search also on Patterson Springs. All right, those are my comments. I appreciate y'all coming out. Thank you.